Here we are at the end of Mardi Gras. Once again, the end of Mardi Gras. It's coming to a close. Now, it's not exactly a church feast, but it is definitely a holiday that makes no sense outside of the Catholic Church calendar. Where would Mardi Gras be without Ash Wednesday being the next day? Now, Mardi Gras has its roots in Christianity, certainly, also in paganism, and it even has Jewish roots, but it still doesn't exist without that sense of Ash Wednesday being tomorrow. The church calendar has a lot of feast days. We have a whole lot of feast days where we typically celebrate some great big victory. We celebrate some victory for God in the world, that part of our history where we recognize God has won some battle, you know. But we also celebrate, not just remembering that history, but looking forward to a victory that we know is assured. We know in the end that Jesus wins. We know in the end that we win because Jesus wins, right? The victory is ours. The game is rigged. The game is fixed, and Jesus wins in the end. And so the book of Ecclesiastes tells us that for everything there is a season and a time for everything under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to reap. And so we are in that cycle, right, of feasting, right, and we have to respect that cycle, right. We don't want to get stuck in a rut of kind of moping around and woe is me carrying my cross, and we don't want to get in a rut stuck somewhere in that one place in the cycle where all we do is celebrate either, because if all we do is either mope or celebrate, we wind up losing the potency of the celebration, or losing the potency of that sober feeling that we might get whenever we fast. We lose that potency because suddenly everything becomes celebrating, for example. Everything's a celebration, and so then nothing's a celebration. We might even get bored with the celebration. We might even turn into hedonists who just end up doing whatever we want, and we're not in the end driven by any kind of a cycle of holidays and fasting and feasting and all that sort of thing. And so we are in that cycle, which is formed by some of those pagan roots that we have. So, for example, in pagan cultures, in ancient pagan cultures, people would put on these scary masks and try to and dance around and sing as a way of trying to push out those evil spirits, to scare away the evil spirits by looking like an evil spirit yourself. This isn't to celebrate evil spirits, not at all. The same way that gargoyles on a church are meant to keep evil at bay, not to celebrate, evil, but rather to keep evil at bay. The same thing that these pagans would put on these masks to drive out those evil demons from their villages, right? In a way, it's kind of like, it reminds me of whistling past a graveyard. Think about it. We know how much bad is in the world. We know how much evil exists in the world. And so one way to get through it is to occasionally whistle past the graveyard to sort of remind you of happier things, even in the midst of suffering, even in the midst of bad things. You sort of, find these ways of coping with all of the evil that we run into. And for Christians, I think for Christians at Mardi Gras especially, we find a way to make fun of that which isn't Christian, those old gods that God has victory over. We make fun of those old gods. I mean, walk around New Orleans at Mardi Gras time, and it seems like everything is themed with some pagan god, right? And it's not that nobody believes in the god of Bacchus, that Bacchus is going to somehow, grant my every wish or anything like that. Nobody believes that. In fact, it's because we don't believe in it that we as Christians can celebrate and include some of those elements as a way to kind of make fun of them, as a way to not be scared of them in any kind of way, to know that our God is the real God who has victory over those old gods. So we're not scared of them in any kind of way. We have the one true God, and so our true liberation ends up being expressed in costumes and dancing and cutting loose, because we believe in the true liberation that God has offered us. And so it's worth reflecting at the end of Mardi Gras. Is everything I said true? Is Mardi Gras for me? Has Mardi Gras been for me some way of celebrating God's victory over death, some way of celebrating God's victory over evil, some way of celebrating the fact that my God has taken over the world and his victory is assured. If it's not, I should pray, right? I should ask God, if I lack some understanding, if I lack some real depth of understanding of what all of these celebrations are about, teach me during this coming Lent, starting with Ash Wednesday, teach me then to know you and your victory as being the one true victory over evil in the world. Teach me to depend on you. Teach me to rely on you for all of the reasons that I have in this world to feast and to fast. Amen.